each and every day. The past is where it stays, way back a year ago.
Bon dia! Welcome back to Living on the Ocean. This is a great day. After all the work, we've decided to get the sails back on Trimaran Twilight. And except for the trip we made to the Guadiana, sea really hasn't been sailing. It's going to be a calm day. The afternoon we're going to get more wind as usual. So we're just going to spend a day out here to recover. This will restore my batteries, I know that for sure. Unless things go hopelessly wrong, but I see no reason why. But on the other side, Twilight is still in exactly the same conditions as he was when we came back from our Atlantic trip. Yes, this simple looking trimaran across the Atlantic, 3 times actually. So let me tell you what happened, so you have a bit of a background story. I had Trimaran Hunkadory, with which I sailed solo to the Caribbean and back in 2016. And that was the trip that changed my life. That endless ocean, the waves, the blue crest, the sky, the clouds, the rainbows, the squalls, the endless sailing, where you could just simply set your sails, keep an eye on the autopilot, and the surfing of the waves that the boat did. It was so spectacular, sometimes frightening. But then there were the dolphins, and it was almost like they come by sometimes to comfort you, and the swimming in the crystal blue waters of the Caribbean, and the stuff that floated in the ocean that I would catch sometimes, and the barnacles that grew on it. I learned how to catch fish. They were not always small fish either, so we need to learn how to dry it, because we don't want to catch what we can't eat. And even the flying fish would just land on the boat, actually too many sometimes. Back in the Netherlands I straight away sold Hunkadory, and I wanted another boat, so I flew to Key West, Florida. And there I bought Trimaran Twilight, a 32-foot John Marples. She had a tiny little cabin inside, just good enough to sleep, eat, cook and sit, and that was exactly what I wanted for the ocean. Because when I sailed with Trimaran Hunkadory, I had this massive boat with 4 double cabins, and I never even slept in one. I slept on the couch in the saloon. You're being alone. You don't need all that space. This was the boat I really wanted. And with that boat I went back to the ocean for the 3rd time in 2016. But she had no protection for waves outside. So I had to build my own dodger. And that was done with plastic, a bit of PVC tube and of course duct tape. And I had enough time on the ocean to start planning the little wheelhouse that this boat needed. At least for the ocean. But this boat was never designed for the ocean. And when I came back in the Netherlands with it, one of the comments to the old owner was, "I did not know you had an ocean sailing boat." On which he commented, "I did not know either." But this little design from John Marples, with its banana shaped floats, a little bit looking like a Hobie cat actually. It did fantastic on the ocean. She never in all the waves gave me the idea that she would dig in her bows into a wave. She always pulled them back up on the bottom of the next wave to come. I felt very safe in her and she felt stiff enough. Her rigging wasn't giving anything, her stays weren't coming loose. She was a rigid boat and I felt very happy with her when I arrived in Bermuda. And I really enjoyed Bermuda and I could have seen a lot more over there, but I was on a mission. I wanted to get this boat all the way back to Europe. So after restocking the boat with food and water and the right weather window to leave again, I went off for a non-stop all the way from Bermuda to the Netherlands. But that went different. And I keep it very short because this is all in previous episodes if you want to see it. But a helicopter almost had to rescue me because the rudder hinge broke and I went in the water and got stung by Portuguese men of war. But then I had to admit that I was gonna abandon my boat and I wasn't prepared to do that either. And I learned through other communication that vitamin C would help me reduce the pain. And I fixed the rudder good enough to make it for the next 100 miles to Flores Azores, where I was wonderfully treated by the authorities and helped on my way. And from there it became the English Channel and the North Sea, and as you can see the blue is gone as usually over there. It's much more grey, and if you look very well you will even see the oil rigs passing by. But we did great speed And after done all those thousands of miles, I got more confidence in the boat and I wasn't prepared to reef so fast. And we were definitely sailing double numbers when we were coming so close to the Netherlands. And I can hear on the original footage of this video that I was congratulating John Marples that his cabin ship crossed an ocean. And almost 5,000 miles extra that year when I docked Trimaran Twilight in the lock of Harlingen, where I was helped to get her into the Frisian canals, where I had to work on her and build the little wheelhouse. And this was very nice to do because I like being creative. And the result I think looked very nice on Trimaran Twilight, but I had to speed it up because it was end of the summer and I wanted to get to Portugal before the bad weather starts. And to go from the Netherlands back to Portugal you have to cross the Bay of Biscay, and there were big waves if you can see on this video. And with gusts of 35-40 I came to Biscay, but with the wheelhouse now she was fantastic, and before I knew it I was sailing in the Algarve. And I sailed for the rest of that year and the beginning of 2017 in the Algarve. The space in Twilight was perfect, but I liked the longer length of the floats of Trimaran Hunkadory. So I put her on the hard and I cut her in the middle. A bigger trimaran was designed, still simple to sail, but with no more accommodation than absolutely necessary, building 10 feet in between her, and made her from 32-41 feet long. As soon as she could float she went back into the water, back to Alvor where I continued the work, and lived in tents that I put on the trampoline. There I met Cheryl, not longer solo, living together on Trimaran Twilight. But then world locked down and we decided to head for the ocean. Now this was so spectacular, I let you hear the original footage. There was a horrible swell right from the start. And Cheryl got so seasick. For more than 4 days she was throwing up, holding the bucket in one hand but steering with the other hand. We had not yet a working autopilot. Not yet knowing that 3 months later she would have done more than 8,000 miles. And crossed the Atlantic twice. This was so unique. This had to be painted in a seashell. Such a great experience, painted in such a small shell. She earned the name Atlantic Sailing Girl. And with great respect for her determination on this Atlantic trip, I started to make this painting. But we weren't allowed to stay in the Canaries and we had to go to the ocean. So we headed for the Caribbean. It was awesome, but everything was closed now and we were stuck in the middle of the Atlantic. Eventually we were given safe haven in St. Martin, and this worked out amazingly because I had walked around with a plan to sail to the Caribbean and back just for a rum coke. But who would ever go with me on that trip? Other sailors had replied, and Cheryl looked up and said I would, and that's how our relationship started. But we couldn't stay there, hurricane season was coming and we had to sail back to Europe. And this was a very interesting trip with lots of winds and squalls, as I will explain later. As Cheryl really enjoyed the beautiful moments, and the boat was doing sometimes great speeds and then absolutely floating.
Hey, I can wash myself! Get the salt off!
And that's how after 3 months sailing we ended up back in this place, in Alvor. And it's interesting, after all this sailing, I'm actually nervous to go out again. It's been too long ago. I'm in the channel here and there's always boats anchored in here, so you always have to watch it. Alvor is getting a busier and a busier place. The ocean, after all those months. To be really honest, sounds silly, I'm nervous a bit to go out. Obviously I haven't lost all my skills, but there is something in confidence. Okay, we have our sail up already. For novice sailors, that's good practice. My engine could fail, and what else can you do than ending up on those rocks? There's my starboard breakwater, the green one. When you go out and you're not tired, then it's red to green. But when you come back in, it's green to green. And here we are. We made it to the ocean. And we're sailing. It was beautiful weather, as you saw in the morning when we went out. We just had a bit of a squall out there. We had some nice winds in it. We were doing 7 knots. You can see the sun is still shining there in the distance. The awesome shape of the clouds when the wind tries to go underneath it. and it brings back the memories of us trying to sail on the edge, trying to get around them on our Atlantic trip coming back from the Caribbean to Europe with this boat in 2020. They were spectacular to watch, especially at a sunrise like this, with these pitch black clouds from the squall next to us, and we knew we were gonna get hammered with rain and wind. But Twilight handled it perfectly. She was above and beyond our expectations, and she gave us great speeds as well. We enjoyed sailing her so much, except for the fact that we went more and more north because there wasn't any west winds, and we went farther north than I really felt comfortable. Our table ain't working that good anymore. Ooh, that's a nice noise. Oh, Arie. You can see I'm steering a bit too far to port, a bit too far to starboard. The wind is changing a bit again. We could sail farther out before, but most of that wind in that squall is over. Well, Cheryl is making breakfast. If you have time, could you pass me a rinky dink? Do we still remember rinky dink? You should have seen the first video when I made rinky dink work. He's a very old autopilot for which I made this slot in here. Cheryl is dealing with the hot water. That's not the moment to let the kettle go. So better for me to steer a little bit longer by hand. So let me explain you quickly rinky dink if you haven't seen the first episode. When we left in world lockdown time, all of a sudden we had no autopilot and rinky dink was made in the Canaries. On the steering lever a slot was made and on the autopilot an eye. And with just simple carbon fiber tape and a bit of epoxy and filler, this rinky dink looking autopilot sailed us twice across the Atlantic without any trouble. And let's see if she still works today. Oh, what just happened? We had a flying fish, and I know everything is this big if you told fishing thing. It hit the corner there with a bang. And I thought it was a bird. And there's the flying fish, literally bigger than a feet, with massive wings laying right in front of the beam. I tried to get over there. Obviously I don't want to fall in the water, so I had to go careful. And he was back in the water. But that would have been a good lunch for both of us. The biggest flying fish I really ever seen on this boat. And I've seen quite a lot. Did not even know there were that many here. And actually on the last trip we made with Trimaran Dawn, I think we also had a flying fish. Never seen them here in all those years except for now twice. So there's flying fish out here. She normally steers herself quite well for a while, so let's see if I can get this line around. And back. And she's still steering. Thanks for keeping an eye out for me. Since you all watch, I better tidy up my line, should I? So she's such a nice boat to sail because she's so easy. Okay, we're gonna tack now. Tacking. We don't have a lot of speed, it will take a bit of time, but she goes. And we're sailing again. Okay, darling, there should be no more fish farms. Can I have rinky dink? Now rinky dink is an autopilot. That's rinky dink. A rinky dink fits on here. And then basically we trim her out first, set her straight up so she has the maximum. It's a bit complicated maybe, but it did it. 2 Atlantic trips. So rinky dink, you're doing a good job. I made this slot in the Canaries, but we figured out she needed more place, so we then built this on the ocean, and since then it's working. This is supposed to be a beautiful steering wheel with dolphins. Can I have one of the dolphins, darling? We came up with an idea and I thought I'd make a nice steering wheel. And I know all carbon steering wheels are almost all these star shapes. And I thought, why not make something a lot more interesting? In the old days we made nice shapes. And then I thought, why not making one with dolphins? So the plan is to make a shape mold of this and get 3 dolphins like this on the steering wheel. And some of you may remember, if you were following me on Facebook, that I made some drawings with seagulls, and a very well-known designer even said, why don't you do an octopus? It's a good idea as well. And obviously there was the request for mermaids. I think they would really like to hold a mermaid while they were steering. All those lonely sailors on the boat. But that's supposed to be, and I don't know yet. Shall I then put one like this and the other one like that? Or should they all go in the same way? But then I think you always have the tendency to steer that way. So then I need to think, what's the more obvious way this would be standing? Obviously you could swing your steering wheel around every time you want to steer another course, but that's a bit out of the question. So here's my dolphin. I kept that a bit blunt because if you grab it, yeah, because if that's the dolphin, and then here the dolphin is gonna, on his nose, is gonna hold the hook. I'm thinking about 3 dolphins. But now I'm thinking, if you make 4 dolphins, then you could have 2 swimming one way and 2 swimming the other way. That could also be nice. Anyway, it's in process. Blue foam, the same foam as I use for that, which is easy to shape, painted with epoxy and a bit of coating, sandplaster, and you get very nice shapes that you can make easily. From this we can make a mold and make as many dolphins as we want. Okay, here's the dolphin back. And there's Cheryl keeping a watch. If it gets bad weather, all we do is we stand here. This is standing height for me. I can just close this, have a perfect view to the windows, and that's how we sail this boat. Still reach everything. Now one day we're gonna put winches up there.
Hey, food's ready.
Hey, we have food. Now we're doing about 7.5 knots. We could probably roll out the Genoa fully and get her up to 8.5, maybe even hit a 9 sometimes. But I have no winches to tack then, and I have to roll her back in, roll her back out. I'm just having fun, and really my fun is not about the speed she does. She will become a bit more stable, she will fall less back if she has more sail, she will hang more on the one float. But I still like the Trimaran motion because she falls on that float and she can go down a bit. Yeah, like a 2 chevaux, a little old-fashioned Citroën, the way they drive. As I say, multi-hull with suspension. Oh, more food. I better eat now, else my food gets cold.
And while I'm doing that, let me show you a picture from the sky. We're heaved too. We basically tacked, but did not pull the foresail to the other side. And we steer her upwind, which is not possible with the foresail on that side. So she stays sideways, laying in the wind. And this is a great way to drift sideways and keep the boat reasonable stable, because the wind still puts pressure on the sail. It's a maneuver to really practice, so you can do a good man overboard, get windward of the person in the sea, then heave to, which saves you all the time of taking your sails down, and drift towards it using your engine to go a bit forward or backwards to make sure that you end up nicely in position to pick the person up. Getting out of it, in this case I do it with a jibe, by simply steering downwind again back to leeway. You could have also just eased the sheet and get a foresail on the correct side and continue on the same tack. Sometimes just use an engine to get out of it. But whatever your boat is, there's different ways of doing it. It's the weather conditions that basically determine what's the easiest to do for your boat.
I've seen a lot of change, been through a lot of pain. Some things are not the same as they were a year ago, but all will be okay. I move on each and every day. The past is where it stays, way back a year ago. I've changed for the better this time. I thought I would never be fine. I strive just to say I'm alright, and for the first time in a long time I'm alright. I've seen a lot of change, been through a lot of pain. Some things are not the same as they were a year ago, but all will be okay. I move on each and every day. The past is where it stays, way back a year ago. I'm not falling, I'll push all my chips and call all in. I'll bet on myself, you keep stalling. I hear destiny and it's calling. I'll keep my head up high through the downs and lows, and we're all going live. Still nobody knows, but I'ma choose what's right and take what comes and goes. And ain't no one in life holding me back no more. I've seen a lot of change, been through a lot of pain. Some things are not the same as they were a year ago, but all will be okay. I move on each and every day. The past is where it stays, way back a year ago.
And sunshine again, that's nice. Well, we went about a bit more than 10 miles out. It got quite grey and not very pleasant up there, but lucky enough now the sky is broken open a bit, but you can see all the clouds. Very unusual for this time of the year. Right in front of us are the breakwaters of Alvor, so we're gonna go in there. I probably, I will drop my engine before that, make it run gently so I can use it straight away if something happens.
Hi!
Hi! Okay, coming up to the entrance. Can you turn off the autopilot?
On to standby.
Which is behind you. So, hand steering. I think we have good wind to go through. And we have current as well to go through. Look, if we can go this high up here, there cannot be wind on our nose. What's our speed now?
Speed now is just loading. 8 knots.
Doing 8 knots. Oh, we're gonna have a zoom into Alvor.
Okay.
Done that before. A while ago when we came back from the double Atlantic crossing, and this entrance was the worst. But at that time the wind was northwest. And then you get it on your nose. Now we just basically broad reaching in here with no problem. I'm nice and polite when I be on camera, am I?
Yes, when we're on camera.
Thinking if we would go all the way in, where can we make a spin to take the sail down? We don't need to, we have enough time. We can do it, make a jibe. That's one of the easiest entrances we've ever done here. Won't you agree?
Yes, yeah, it was.
Of course, many times in the afternoon the wind picks up from there and would actually means you have to tack in here. And when Twilight was shorter, before I liked it, I would tack her to the entrance. But she's not as fast in turning anymore, so that's not a good option. Well, welcome back in Alvor. And you really have to move here. I don't know if you can see it on the video.
Close against the green.
No, we're not close to the green. I don't want to get near that sandbank. Now careful, this is somewhere gonna come. Now the green buoy is in the right position now here, but for years, more than 10 years, it has been laying all the way over there and people would go over the sand spit.
There were days where we thought we wouldn't make it out, but we stuck it out. Today's our day. Today's our day. There were nights we would fight, no wind inside, nothing was right. Tonight's our
Fishing boat behind us as well.
Tonight's our night.
Okay, can you hold this?
Keep this
Steer, yeah.
I'll fight for you until this life is over. There's no giving up here. We'll make it out and fall out tonight. Ain't nothing needed but us feeling right. Just take a chance, we got a wild ride.
If he's passing me, then I can make a turn, else I can't.
We were meant to be. We were meant to be. We were meant to be.
He was just stopping me of making a good turn. Because I'm going to spin a circle, drop her into the wind, take the sail down.
Fell back in love, the best still to come. Our time is now.
Bella.
Our time is now. I'll fight for you until this life is over. There's no giving up here, babe. We'll make it out and fall in love tonight. Ain't nothing needed but us feeling right. Just take a chance, we got a wild ride. Wait and see, you and me, we were meant to be. We were meant to be.
Okay, steer back.
We were meant to be. We were meant to be.
The buoy lays to the starboard, so the current is going to take us to starboard, yeah? Okay, well that's an easy one. I can just grab it by hand. Engine off.
We had a fantastic day sailing Trimaran Twilight again, with so many memories of earlier adventures that we had with her on the Atlantic. Down here in the left hand corner is a button to subscribe and follow our adventures, and up here on the right hand corner is our next video, and our playlist is down here in the right hand corner. We want to thank you for all your likes, comments and subscriptions, and we hope to see you in the next video. Thanks for watching Living on the Ocean.